On one of my recent flea market trips, I happened to pick up this nice little alarm clock made by Accurite. It's a nice little clock. It runs well. Nothing's really wrong with it. The only problem that there is that there's these hands, and around the dial ring here they have little marks you can see out from the numerals. These marks and these hands are supposed to be luminescent so that you can see it at night, and I guess over time it's kind of lost its strength. So I'm going to be opening this alarm clock up just so I can get the face out of there and just touch up those points with some of this glow-in-the-dark paint. So, first step before we can go any further is we have to get access to the dial face. And the only way we're going to get access to the dial face is we're going to have to remove the movement. So I'm going to flip it around over here. And I've got it, as you can see, I've got a towel laid out here, so it's got a nice soft surface to lay on. Nothing can get damaged, scratched, or broken. Now, to get this movement out, we're going to have to remove this back plate off of here. And the first step we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take these winding keys off. And what it is, on most of these alarm clocks, the winding keys are actually, they screw on. They're threaded on the inside and they screw down onto the post. So what we're going to do first, we'll start with the time one. And you just have to do it backwards. Like that. Do it until it comes off there. Because once we get these winding keys off that plate, we don't have to worry about these little knobs here because of the holes. They'll just slide right out past them. Now for the alarm portion right here, we're actually going to hold our finger against the strike hammer right here just to give us a little added support there to where we can start unwinding it. And there it comes right off. Sit that there. And then this plate, sometimes these back plates may be held on by screws or nuts, things like that. This one's actually just pressed on, so it just slides right off. Let me get it past those little knobs there. There we go. We're just going to set that aside for right now. And here you can see the inside. You can see the clock movement itself. Now we've got to get this. I'm going to let that mainspring on the strike side is actually fully wound up, so we're actually going to run that out. We're going to let it strike so it can unwind all the way. Get it all the way up here. Come on. Alright, I don't know how well it shows up on here, but if you can see, here we've got the mainspring right here has fully unwound. We've got the time mainspring, which is still pretty much fully wound itself. I'm actually going to run it. I'm going to run the hands around a little more, see if I can get that time mainspring released out a little bit more. I want as much of that spring released as I can before I start working with it. So I'll be back in just a minute. So I believe I've let that mainspring out right there as far as I can, so to where it's reasonably safe. But just as a safeguard, I went ahead and put these winding keys back on, just so that as I'm working with this plate right here, it won't completely come apart, hopefully. Because one of the main issues that we're facing right now, in order to get to the dial face, as I've mentioned before, we have to take the movement completely out. And the one thing that's standing in the way right now of getting that movement out is we have this strike hammer, as you can see, which actually runs down through. Let me take that little guard off right there. You can see the strike hammer actually passes through this hole right here and is attached onto this arbor in here. I can't really angle it to show you a good picture of it though. But that strike hammer comes down through here and it's actually attached onto an arbor which it's mounted between the plates of the movement right here. So in order to get that strike hammer out, I'm going to have to remove the strike hammer from between the plates of the movement first before I can actually take the movement itself out. So what I'm going to do for that is we have these little nuts right here. We have one here and one here, which are holding the top portion of the movement plate together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pair of nylon pliers right here, and I use the nylon just so it won't scratch the metal of the movement, and I'm going to take those nuts off, and then using my fingers I'm going to try and spread that plate out far enough to where I can use a pair of these needle nose pliers to get in there and work that pivot out of its pivot hole that is holding that strike hammer arbor in place. So we'll do that now. And my goal here is not to do it all the way. It's just enough to where I can get it to where I can loosen it by my fingers the rest of the way. See, these, I don't even think those are getting a solid good grip on it. So I think what I'll do instead is I'll use a pair of plain jaw pliers. They don't have any grooves or teeth on them. So we'll try that. Yeah, that's working better like that. And we'll just do those. We'll move those nuts just enough to where we can get them off with our fingers now. So, there's that one. And here comes the next one. Come on, it's going to be a little difficult. There we go. All right, we'll take those, and just so we don't lose them, we'll put them in a little container for right now. Set that back aside. Now here comes the fun part. Let's see. Let's see. Try to just gently work it with my fingers back and forth. One of those little pivots for the strike hammer, not the strike hammer, but the strike train slipped out. That's okay though. Let's see. Okay, there's one of the. Oop. Okay, there's that one. Okay, we lost. Unfortunately. Let's see here. Let's see here, that part came out, so what we're going to do, we're going to put that back in there. And then we're going to have to gently work that one back in place because it wanted to slip out of there. Okay. Gently look around on the side, see where we're at. Gently move him. There we go. There we go. We got him back in place now, which is good. We don't want any of these falling out that we don't need, because I'm not going to take the whole movement apart. I'm just taking out what I need to. In which case, this is just the strike hammer that I need to take out, which we got out of there. We just got to kind of work him out. And there he comes, right there. Now we got it. All right. So that is our strike hammer removed. We got that part removed. We're going to put it in here with the little nuts that we took off from earlier. Put that in there. We'll set it aside. Okay. I'm just going to check over this again, make sure nothing else popped out of place from where it should have been. No, everything looks good. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these winding keys back off again, because now we don't really need them. Okay, we'll take those off. And now we will actually put those nuts, we'll retighten those nuts again there, so that way that movement plate stays together. I'm just gonna throw those on there. Just finger tight will do. Okay. All right, that's good. Now, in order to get the rest of the movement out, we're going to have to disassemble the rest of the clock. So we'll start first up here. We'll start with the handle and the bells. Let me go ahead and get my container box open so I can put all my parts in there. That way we don't lose anything. Okay, I'm going to take the handle off now. Those in there. We'll take these bells, little cup bells, and we'll put them in there. Continue. I'm going to take it like this right here so that way I don't lose that washer that's on there. Put that. Do the same with this one. There we go. We also have to take off our little, I guess you could call it the damper if you want to. Actually, you put it against the strike hammer to keep the alarm from going off if you don't want it to. Okay. Okay. I'll take that piece, put it in there. Okay, that takes care of all the top pieces we need to take off. So now we'll take the feet off. And same procedure. I'm going to put these on there to where we don't lose those washers, because we'll need those again in the reassembly. Okay. Let's take those off. Just kind of check over it real quick. Make sure there's nothing I missed. Looks good. And I think just till we're ready to put it back together again and set it running, just to kind of silence, kind of stop the ticking, I'm just going to take a tiny little piece of paper towel here, and I'm just going to gently insert it into the balance wheel. Get it down in there, maybe get it. I'm going to try to work it to where it's down in that little hole right there. quite going to work like that. But that should be enough. That should be good enough, though, right there. Ah, there we go. There, it went down there. That'll stop it from ticking right now and running while we work on it. Because as we're painting, we don't want that seconds hand to continue sweeping around while we're trying to paint, have to stop every once in a while to get out of its way. So by just putting that there against the hairspring and through the balance wheel, that actually stops it from running to where we can work on it. So now we ought to be able just to slide it out of there. I'm just going to gently rock it back and forth. I can feel it coming out now. Yep, there it comes. All right. So there we have it. We have our movement, and we have our face. I'm going to leave the little ring and everything in there. Actually, come to think of it, no, I'm not. I'm going to take that glass out because we don't want the glass to break if something were to slip and fall. So I'll take that ring out. I'll gently lift the little glass out of there. And we'll set it aside. Get our glow-in-the-dark paint ready. I'll go ahead and stick that ring back in there just so we know where it's at. And most of the time, in most cases, I would remove the hands off of the clock. But for this purpose, since the markings themselves and the hands are so small, it's not going to take very long. So I'm actually just going to leave those in place. I'm going to leave the hands and everything attached because it is such a small, minuscule job. It won't take very long. And I'll actually use the case itself as sort of a stand while I work on it. So let me get my brush here. I'm just going to do little increments right here, just like I said, we don't want a whole lot on there, just one or two passes, one or two dabs on the markings. Essentially, that's all there's going to be to it. So I'll do these, probably just do these hands first. I'll get them out of the way. Then I'll continue the rest of the way around the face, just touching up those little dots on the outer edges of the face there. And then once I get done with that, we'll come back to it and we'll start reassembling again. So now we're ready to start reassembling again. I've already got the movement back in there. I was just checking, making sure that all the holes are lining up where they need to be, because you don't want to get it in there and then it be installed upside down. That wouldn't do. So everything's in there, ready to be installed back again. So one of the first things I'm going to reinstall, since it was the first thing that I disassembled, is I'm actually going to reinstall the strike hammer first. So we're going to take these nuts back off again. We're just essentially just working the process in reverse. So I'm going to let that pivot hole kind of sink in there where it needs to be. Let's see, find my layers here. And just essentially the same thing. I'm going to space it apart with my fingers, just enough to get that right back in there. Okay. Okay. That one should be positioned. That other one wants to slide out again, so we gotta work it back in place. Let's see here. It's still in its hole there. Let's see what's holding us up. That bottom part is in there. Let's see. That part's in place. Okay, that's back there, but now I've got to get this one back in because it slipped out again. Trial and error. That's all it is. Let's see here now. Where are you? Come on. Okay, there we go. Let me just check the placement of those bottom pivots, make sure they're in their holes correctly. It should be right. We'll know here in a second when we test the strike side. So what we're going to do here now. Okay. Let's get our nuts back in place real quick. Get those on there. And since I want to give this a test, one of the first things after that I'm going to assemble is I'm going to assemble the strike bells again. Come on, get on there. Okay. Got our little cut bells out there. So we need to get our little damper or silencer, whatever you want to call it, on there. This moved around here. Is it threading in there? I think it is. Okay. Might be just a little bit too tight. Let me just back that out a little bit. We don't want it so tight it's going to hurt your fingers when you're trying to move it on there. There we go. That's better. 100 times better. Okay. Now we'll do the rest of the bell assembly. We'll get our cut bells on there, and then we'll get our handle back on, whether it wants to or not. So now we need our little cap nuts on there. Tighten it down. Tighten that one on there. All right. Now I'm just going to give this a test. So all I need is my little winding key. Put it all the way down on there. Just enough. And let's see how it does. Actually, let me go ahead and take our little tissue out there so it can start running again. Run it all the way around, see if it'll strike, if the alarm's put back together correctly. Let's see here. Okay, it seems to be doing good. Let me put the little damper on it, the little silencer to hold it, and do a full wind and see how it does. There we go. I would say that the strike system was put back together correctly, so we can finish off the assembly from there. I'm going to have to dampen that back again because I'm going to have to take a key off in order to get the back plate on there. All right, we'll finish off the assembly, which just includes putting our feet back on there, getting back on our feet, so to say. All right, there's that one. Now we're ready for our back plate once again. Let's see here. There we go. Get it on there. Just press it on good. Now we can reattach our winding keys. And we'll wind it up to make sure that they're tightened on there good. And so there we have it. We got the numerals painted like they should be. Clock's running just as good as ever. And we're going to give it a test, make sure that the paint actually took good, and then it's going to be bright enough to where you can see it in the dark now. And now we've got it all put back together, and I've checked it out and tested it in the dark to see, and it's glowing pretty well. I would try to show it on camera, but my tablet doesn't really pick up in the dark that well, but it is glowing good now, so now I'll probably put it back out there, try to resell it and make a little profit on it.